In this lesson, we're going to learn how to felt, which is a way of knitting something up really big and putting it in the hot washing machine and shrinking it down. And while we're learning to felt, we're going to learn to make this basket. So in this lesson, we're going to learn how to work with different colors. We're going to learn how to do some of the unique shaping on this bag, including how to do the handles. And then in the last part of the lesson, we'll actually venture out to my garage and put the finished piece in the washing machine to felt it up so we can watch the process of how that works. And first up, we're going to talk about the bag bottom and picking up stitches for the bottom of the bag. So to get started on the bag, you're going to want to follow your pattern to knit this bottom section. And if you'd like to follow along with this pattern that we're using here, it's available for purchase and download over on my website. So if you're following the pattern, you will end up with a piece that looks like this. And again, the felting process is going to shrink everything down, so things are huge and floppy right now. You start by casting on just a couple of stitches and then increasing until you get to the part where you have enough stitches. Then you just knit plain for a while and then you decrease down back to 2 stitches again. And that's all spelled out in the pattern, including links to the 2 increases and decreases that you'll need to make this happen. Now there's an important thing here. We need to have markers placed between the angled sections and the straight sections. And I want to show you exactly how to place those markers to get things just right. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, I've knit up a much smaller piece here to show you exactly what we have. And I have used yarn as a place marker on here because it's really handy after you knit this piece to iron it out. And you can see this piece is looking so flat and beautiful and it's easy to see, but it was a curly mess right after I knit it. It was curling up like this. It looked pretty much like that. So if you use yarn, it's okay to iron this out with a steam iron. If you have a little plastic marker, it's going to melt. So I recommend using yarn. Okay, so here's my piece. We're going to pretend that I have knit up, and of course this looks nothing like the piece you'll be using, but we're going to pretend that I've knit up to the part where I need to place a marker. And the pattern tells me exactly where to place a marker at the end after I finish a row. So we'll pretend this is the piece here. What you need is a short piece of yarn and a tapestry needle. I'm going to thread that onto there. And the thing you want to mark is the stitch that's on the needle, the stitch that's currently on the needle. So you put your tapestry needle in there with the loop on the needle. And then just do a little overhand knot. And this scrap yarn will be removed later, so it's not a big deal how it looks. You just want to make sure you get it in the right spot. So that's how you're going to mark that stitch. You're also going to mark the same stitch on the other end of the needle. And that's it. It's a really important part of the pattern that you get those stitch markers placed just right. Next up, we're going to pick up stitches around the bottom of the bag. There's a lot of unique shaping going on in this bag, and we already talked about what the first piece looks like when you're done with it. And again, this is all ironed out flat. It's easy to see. We have just a couple stitches, it gets wide, it's straight, and then it goes down to just a couple stitches again. And that is the bottom of the bag here. This one's in black, this one's in red, this one's in black, and it's this whole piece right here. So we need to pick up stitches around this to be able to knit the body of the bag, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do now. Okay, you're going to follow your pattern, and you have these markers placed so nicely, and this again is a much smaller piece than you'll end up with. I just knit this up for a sample. And what you want to do is roll the, you want to start working across one side like this, and you're going to start over here at the right marker, and then roll it so you're sure you're looking at the edge stitches. And the edge stitches are going to look like V's. You want to skip the marker and put your needle into both legs, meaning the whole V of the next stitch. You're going to grab your other color of yarn and I'm just using this for an example, I'm not sure I'd put these two greens together, and pull that through. Then you go into the next stitch, wrap your needle and pull it through. And I just made a mistake there that I can talk about. When you put your needle in and you wrap the needle, it's going to require a lot of tension to get that needle to pull through. This is the way you're going to, oops, I almost forgot something. When you're picking up the stitches between these two markers, you're going to pick up 1, 2, 3, and then skip 1, and then pick up 1, 2, 3, and then skip 1. So there's my 1, 2, 3. There's the next one. I'm going to skip it. I'm going to go into the following one. This will give us a nice flat piece. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then there's the next one. I'm going to skip it and go into the following one. Okay, so you'll follow your directions to pick up everything you need to pick up on the straight side, on the straight part of the piece, and then when you get to the next marker, you will actually pick up the stitch that this is marking. And then you're going to turn your work. So you'll be working from this side. And you're going to pick up and purl on this side. And I want to show you what that looks like. How am I going to do this? Okay. When you're picking up and purling, I'm going to just do it from this knit side here. You come, instead of coming from the front to the back like this, you're going to come in from the back to the front. So you come in this way, and your yarn's in front because you're purling. You wrap the needle and pull it through that way. Now I'm just demonstrating on this side. This is actually the knit side. Show you again. You come in from the back to the front under both legs of the V. Oops, I just went in the same stitch. Come in from the back to the front on both legs of the V, wrap the needle and pull it through to the back. And that's going to give you a nice edge on the right side of the work without this ridge that you see while I'm picking up and knitting. Anyway, so let me talk more about this. You pick up between the markers on the first row, you pick up this one that is marked, and then you turn your work. And then you're going to work all the way across, purl all the way across, and pick up the one that this is marking on this side, and then turn your work again. And then this is where things change. Now you're actually going to be picking up stitches along the slanted edges. And when you do that, you're going to pick up every other stitch. So when I come back this way on the third row, there's the last one I picked up. I'm going to skip this one and pick up both legs of this one and then turn the work. And then when I'm going on this side, it's going to be the same thing from there on out. I'll work past this one, skip the next one, and pick this one up. That's what's going to give us the nice angle on the side of the bag. Once you pick up everything on one side of the bag, you'll of course repeat the same thing for the other side of the bag. And when you pick up both sides, it will actually start looking like a bag. You will have kind of a bag shape. Then you're going to follow the directions to do some decreasing on the sides. And next up, I believe we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about doing the bind off for the handles. The handles on this bag are really simple. It's really just binding stitches off and then casting stitches on using the backwards loop method. But there is a tricky part in counting the bind off stitches. And that's what I want to demonstrate for you now. First up, let me show you. This is what your bag is going to look like when it's finished. And I will give you a bigger shot of this in a minute. But this is the handle part of it. And these are a bunch of bound off stitches and then stitches cast on using the backwards loop method, and then you knit a few more rows. That's what I'm going to show you now. Okay. I'm going to use this little sample piece to show you how to do it. You're going to follow your pattern and knit up to the spot where it tells you to start binding off. Okay, we're going to pretend that's the spot. The thing to remember is you have to knit 2 stitches to bind one off, but the knitting of the 2 stitches does not count as part of the bind off. So I'm going to knit 2, and then this action right here counts as 1 bind off. That's 2, That's 3. That's 4. You see? It's actually pulling the one stitch over the other one that counts as the bind off. Now we'll go ahead and pretend that this is all I need to bind off, and I'll have however many stitches remaining when I'm done with that part. I already have 1 stitch knit. Don't forget to count this. This is left over from the bind off, but it should actually be included with these stitches right here in your count. So you'll finish knitting the rest of the round. And then on the next round, when you come up to this gap right here, you're going to do what is the backwards loop cast on to cast on the same number of stitches that you bound off. So you'll end up with the same number as you started before the bind off. And to demonstrate that really quickly, you just twist the yarn around your thumb and slide it onto the needle. And this is a way of casting on when you only have 1 strand to work with. It's not the greatest cast on for when you're starting a project, but it works really well in cases like this. That's the backwards loop cast on. You'll work that bind off and the backwards loop cast on both sides of the bag, of course, so you have 2 handles. And next up, we're going to talk about making the top of the bag look really smooth and even where you're joined in the round. You should have a finished bag now. It doesn't look like much. It is huge and floppy and curling up in places and hardly recognizable as this bag. That's all going to change when we felt it. The last thing I want to show you how to do before we actually go to the washing machine with this is in the spot where you were joining, where the beginning of your round was, you'll probably have a pretty significant jog here and you have an end to weave in. So I'm going to show you how to use this end to make this really smooth so the bag has a nice finished top when you're done with felting. So let's take a look. Okay, of course this is all curling up on me because that's the nature of stockinette stitch here. I'm going to take my tapestry needle, and while I'm weaving in this end, I'm going to do a little trick to smooth that out. So here's where the yarn is coming from. Here's kind of the gap, and here is the part I want to connect it to. If I can pull this over to the other side and cover this gap and make a V out of it so it matches everything else on the top row of this bag, no one will ever be wiser that there was ever a join here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this first V here, and I'm going to go through both legs of the next V with my tapestry needle. Then I'm going to go back down into the same spot that my yarn was coming from, that this end was coming from in the first place. I pull that through and tighten it up, and you see how much better that looks? It is smooth across the top now. Now I'll just weave this end in. Of course, you want to weave all your ends in before you felt, or you can have some crazy consequences. Okay, and now that's good enough. I can cut that in short. That'll be fine. Next up, we get to start felting. We are now just about ready to felt, and felting is always kind of an adventure, so we're going to go on this adventure together. Before I put this in the washing machine, there's something that I want to do. I happen to use yarns that I had left over from other projects for this bag, and I'm not sure that I would normally pick 2 such high contrast colors, because there is a chance that this red is going to bleed into this cream color, and I'm not really going to have a lot of control over that in the washing machine. But there's something I can do to help with that before I go to the washing machine. I'm going to soak this for just a few minutes in a sink with water and about a cup of vinegar. Cold water, about a cup of vinegar, just the cheapest white vinegar they sell in the grocery store. I probably actually use more than a cup because it is so cheap, and I just really want to make sure the colors are going to stay set. That will help set the color. Soak it for 10 or 15 minutes. That should be enough. Then when I go to the washing machine, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to turn the water on to hot and let it run for a little bit with an empty basket. I'm not going to put anything in the washing machine yet. I'll let the water get hot and start running hot because I do want the absolute hottest water in the washing machine for this. And then I'll spin that out and then actually fill the tub with the hot water. I'm going to put this inside of a lingerie basket because when you're felting things, a lot of wool flies and you want a lingerie basket or a zippered pillowcase to catch that wool so it doesn't eventually ruin your washing machine if you do a lot of felting. And I'm going to also throw an old towel in there because it will help agitate this and it will help it felt faster. So I am going to go take this to first to the sink for the vinegar bath and then to the washing machine to wash it in the hot water. I'm probably going to give it about 7 minutes at first, and then next up we'll check the felting process together so you can recognize when something is finished felting. Okay, I'm just in from the garage with this partially felted bag, and I want you to take a look at what it looks like when it's partially felted so you can see that there's still some stitch definition. It's not ready to go yet. So let's take a look. It is fuzzy and hot and wet and stinky right now. And if you take a look, you can see that we can still see little V's. That means that it is not done felting yet. There's way too much stitch definition. Another thing you can go by is the size of the bag. You probably want to felt it down to about the same size that I have, and this is still much too big and floppy. So this is going back into the washing machine for a while. Okay, back from the washing machine, and I think we have a fully felted bag here. Something you want to keep in mind is that felting is always an adventure, like I've said, but it makes a difference, the different yarn that you use, your washing machine, how hot the water is, even different colors of yarn will felt differently in the same brand and same type of yarn. But I think we've got it here. First, let's take a look at the stitch definition. You can see there are no more V's here. This bag is completely felted. Okay, and it's also very fuzzy, and I'll be pulling off the bits of fuzz as we go. And I want to talk to you a bit about shaping this bag. I should probably keep this here. But you can see that this is really lumpy and lacking a lot of shape. And so what I'm going to do first is to square out the bottom of it. And of course I have the color break there to show me where the corners should be, where the edges should be. And I usually like to felt things a little smaller than I want them to be in the end so that I can successfully do this stretching part to get things smoothed out. Okay, the bottom's pretty squared out. So now I'm going to stretch out the sides a little bit, paying attention to the fact that I want this bag to go out and back in again on the sides. And then I can stretch out. You see how I'm grabbing where the corners would be? The corners are here, and I'm pulling it like that. That will help put a lot of definition into the corners. Oh, this bag is really warm. It's warm. It's warm today. I'm starting to sweat a little bit doing this. Okay. Now this is something that I can fuss with shaping a felted piece for a long time to get it just right. And this one is actually, the shape is really hold its own really well. It's holding its own really well. It looks pretty good. You can see the difference here already. This is looking much more like the bag it should look like. Now, when I let this dry, if you followed along with the Easter basket felting project we did together, I said keep felting it until it stands up on its own. Don't stuff it with anything. This is different. This is a much lighter fabric, and it won't dry standing up on its own. It'll flop around while it's wet and heavy. So I always use, you can use plastic bags, plastic grocery bags. I like to use this fabric, this tulle fabric. and put it inside and shape it like this. The fabric is certainly quieter on camera to use than the plastic bags. You see how that's really going to help. And then the last thing I did when I was shaping this was I used a couple of clothespins, and I closed the top together so that it wouldn't stretch out the top while it was drying. And then it really dried in no time. I should mention, before I pulled this out of the washing machine, I turned the washing machine on to spin for like 30 seconds to get most of the water out. Now, the last thing you'll want to do is to let it dry and then see how it's holding its shape. When I did this bag, I actually let it dry, and I still felt the bag was too floppy after it was dried, so I put it in for one more felting cycle. So this bag in these colors, I probably felted this for a little over 20 minutes total, probably like 23, 25 minutes. This one felted for just about exactly 20 minutes, and it seems to be a little bit smaller. Yes, it is a little bit smaller. It felted a little bit harder, a little bit faster than the other one. Felting's always an adventure, like I said. Anyway, you let this dry and you'll have a finished bag and a good lesson in felting.